Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. If you didn't catch yesterday's video, this is part two of a conversation with the Sultan of Spoilers, the Titan of Tea, and the gossip, the Godfather of Gossip. If you didn't catch yesterday's episode, go back now and watch that. This is the second part of a two-part conversation with Reality Steve. Now, I wanted to ask about, does your sourcing of spoilers differ from Bachelor in Paradise to Bachelor and Bachelorette, just given the chance of the format's different? I know you can't go into how you get your sources, but is it a different game for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's every season. It's just like, hell if I know where it's coming from, and then it ends up coming from somewhere. I mean, that's the best way to put it is, there are some people that I have that are sources that are consistent every season because of, how do I word this? I don't even know how to word it. I just know that there are people every season that come to me that I can count on because they do know stuff. But the extent of what they tell me every season definitely varies. Sometimes they have a lot of stuff, and sometimes they have just stuff here and there, piece stuff, like maybe a location that they're headed, or maybe who won. I mean, it varies. But then there are other things that happen. There's a lot of obviously crowdsourcing, which happens a lot, which happened on the group date this past week with Zach, and on Zach's season, there was a football group date. The show absolutely loves football group dates, especially putting the women in pads and having them play a football game that clearly none of them either want to play or can play. Yet they have them running around in a helmet and shoulder pads tackling each other. They did it on Clayton season. Like literally, we just had this date last season. Remember that? And that was the one where Shanae's team lost, but then she ended up breaking up the group date after party and throwing the trophy down. Like we remember that. I don't know if anybody does that this season, but we had that date this past week on Zach's season. Something like that. Obviously, there was an audience in attendance. That audience speaks, and I heard everything that went down. I got a couple videos where I was able to identify everybody on the date, and kind of go from there. So yeah, a lot of crowdsourcing, a lot of sources that are there every season, and then a lot of new sources that appear every new season.
How easy is it to vet new sources as far as can you call bullshit? And if so, what is it that gives it away? Because obviously there's going to be people that are going to just throw you stuff that's completely not true.
Yeah, I think if I get a tip from a Twitter account that has an egg as a picture and has nothing else, usually, now that can be one of two things. It could be somebody trying to point me in a wrong direction, or it can be somebody that doesn't want to be identified. And, I'm not a fan of Dumois. I understand that people are. It's whatever to me. But their biggest thing is, I've noticed when I have seen some of the posts on Dumois, the people that send in stuff end it with anon, please. Like that's their thing. Anon, just, like, hey, I'm anonymous. Please don't reveal who I am. I've noticed I've been getting a lot of that recently. Like people that tell me stuff say anon, please. I'm like, first off, I'm not Dumois. I don't post every single thing that's sent to me. So you don't even have to tell me anon because you're always anonymous when you give me information. But sometimes if it's something like that where it's just an egg, it just means that they don't even want their name out there for me to even know their name, even though I would never reveal it. So I got to tell them, like, look, it all comes down to what they actually tell me. And then when I get the tip sent to me and I read the DM, it's like, okay, how do you know this? And then go from there. And then I just ask them. I start asking them questions, almost like an interrogation of them. Like, how do you know this? How sure are you of this? And judging by the answers that they give me, that's how I pretty much know if it's legit and if they can show me any sort of proof.
I'm telling you, I would watch this docuseries, Reality Steve, collecting his spoilers. I absolutely would. Just lastly, we are about maybe a third of the way through Zach's season. Any progress into finding out who wins that? I mean, obviously, Zach doesn't know yet.
No, I don't know, because I only know one of the 3 one-on-one dates that have happened at this point, and that was a couple days ago in Santa Barbara. Alyssa had a one-on-one, and she's I can't remember her job, but I know part-time she's a Braves Atlanta Braves cheerleader, and she had the one-on-one. I'm assuming she got the rose. I didn't hear whether or not she did, but usually early on, one-on-ones always get a rose. There'll be the exceptions here and there, but for the most part, like Jordan V last season, Rachel, right, very first one-on-one date of the season, didn't give him a rose.
Which, by the way, that had to be that he was a short guy. He's good looking. He's a pro athlete. This and that. I looked him up. He was like 5'8". I go, that's it. She didn't like the short guy.
It's very possible. Like, it was really bizarre because it seemed like they got along. Maybe the conversation was a little slow and she had to kind of pull stuff out of him. But on a first date, you can chalk that up to maybe nerves and the fact that you're being televised. But no, I haven't heard anything. But we know on this show, especially with one lead now, that if you get a one-on-one early on, you're probably going far. And there's a good chance that you will be in the Final Four. But, you know, I only know one of the three that have happened. So I'm not sure yet who any front runners are. I have heard a couple things, but again, too early to tell.
Just if you can wait till after my wedding to break any news, that would be nice. Just wait till the 19th of October.
I was going to say, so I want to say, I'm trying to think. Usually around Halloween is when Hometowns starts. It might be a few days after, or we're in the middle of Hometowns always during Halloween. It's either like, because this always stuck in my brain. I remember Courtney Robertson on Ben Flanick's season. She had the fourth hometown date, and I remember it being on Halloween. So that's why I've always had in my head, Halloween time is always during some sort of filming of Hometown. It's either going to fall on that day, or it'll be the off day in between two hometown dates. So,
yeah, and I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it's usually towards the end because the Final Four rose ceremony is usually around November 1st, 2nd, 3rd in that area. So, yeah, when you get out of your wedding, we'll be towards probably the last location before hometown dates.
See, yeah, my lady's going to be asking me to start signing thank you cards, and I'll say, sorry, Reality Steve has a spoiler we need to go get to. My last question for you, because I wanted to promote realitysteve.com. You have daily podcast. How has the daily podcast changed the way you cover the Bachelor content? Are you just getting deeper into things?
It's not necessarily I'm getting deeper into things, but during the season, I only do 3 columns a week. And actually, well, 2. I recap on Tuesdays, and my reader emails is on Wednesdays. Thursdays is just my podcast. But what it's made me do is almost like, look, I understand that not everybody can listen to podcasts, and some people just like reading other than listening to podcasts. They don't have the time, versus some people like podcasts and don't want to read anything. So what it's made me do is double up and remind myself that because I'm now doing a daily podcast, if there's some breaking information in that daily podcast, I need to also write it out and put it in written form. Maybe not necessarily that exact day, but within a couple of days. Like today, I released the whole story behind what really happened with Sally Carson, not this stupid bullshit reenactment that they did on Monday. But I didn't put it in written form. But I probably will when Sally actually comes on the show, which is, I believe, either the end of Monday's episode or the beginning of Tuesday's episode. She'll be appearing down on the beach, and then the next day I'll put it in there, basically a written version of what I said in the daily roundup today. But yeah, the daily roundup has been going good. I'm kicking myself for not doing it earlier because I didn't realize the monetary the monetary positives that can come from this, and it's just because of downloads, and that's because of my listeners. I have a really strong base that likes to listen to the information and the stuff that I give. And I was only for 5.5 years, I was doing 1 episode a week. And now I'm like, holy shit, I'm doing 5 daily roundups and then my normal Thursday one. Now I'm doing 6 pods a week. And granted, the daily ones are a lot shorter. It's 20 to 25 minutes, but it's just getting like it's almost like an email blast, but in a daily email blast, but in verbal form, you know? And it's just like, hey, here's the latest going on in Bachelor Nation. And honestly, you know what? I could probably put even a hell of a lot more into if I followed every single contestant that's on Bachelor in Paradise and went over every tweet and who sent out this and who threw shade at somebody. I try and stick to the main ones, like this past week with the Kira and Justin Beef. Like, I try and stick to the main ones. Hell, sometimes I just like, all right, what did Dave talk about today? Because this is probably what I just, and so I cover it.
Yeah.
And because you cover it so well, I'm just like, okay,
Well,
that's different.
I'm the same way as you, where like I'm done with Tyler Cameron. He's very he's very boring. In like we've got all that we've commodified everything out of the Hannah Brown situation. Until something next happens, there's nothing there. Same thing kind of with Pilot Pete and Kelly Flanagan. Until something happens, it's done. But then there's like new developing stories. I've enjoyed the Sally story so much, even though it doesn't really generate too many views. I found her fascinating from the second we saw her wedding registry. I thought your coverage of what actually happened with Sally was so well done. You do a great job with the way you tell the stories. And it's funny because I feel like you came up when blogging was popular, but your strong suit, I mean, your blogging is great too, but I think your strong suit is being able to just tell the story for the people that just want all the dots connected.
Yeah, and my background is in radio. It's all I ever. The only thing I ever wanted to do, starting about freshman year of college, the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life was have my own sports talk show. And radio was always my medium. I've never been a TV guy. I never took a TV class in college. Just wasn't my thing. I wasn't made out for TV, I don't think. I liked the anonymity of just a voice behind a microphone. And then when podcasting became a thing, became popular in the mid 2000s. I'm just like, this is my chance to get back into radio where I don't have to work for a company. I can do my own thing, do my own podcast. If people want to listen, great. If they don't want to listen, that's fine as well. But I've always enjoyed the storytelling aspect and the way I can go about saying things, because and when I write, I kind of write like I talk, because I don't consider myself. I wasn't a journalism major. I was a communications major in college, and that's what I got my degree in. So my writing is just like me kind of just riffing. It's just my thoughts. And, but it's so much easier to verbalize. And I think when you verbalize something, it kind of speaks to people more than written words on a page, because I'm not an author. I'm Anne Rice. I'm not Tom Clancy. Those people that are great writers. Obviously, there's other great authors out there, but yeah, it's a way to, especially the Sally story, because it was easy to do what you kind of do, but just in a verbal form, where it's just like, hey, you saw the reenactment Monday. A woman shows up at Sally's door and a guy answers and says, Sally's got explosive diarrhea. Wrong. That's not what happened. Nobody ever said that. That was completely made up for television. Oh, she had to go talk to her ex-boyfriend. She put the producer in a trunk. No, never happened. Not at all. The conversation with her ex-boyfriend took 10 minutes and the producer just sat there. It's just like in the car. So it's like, even if you even thought about it logically, there would be no reason for Sally to be like, even if Sally was paranoid that her ex-boyfriend was going to see a producer from the television show was in the car out front, which why would he bother to look at what's going on the street when Sally shows up at the door, whatever. All Sally could have had to say was, hey, I don't want him to see you. Just go drive around the corner. Like, putting someone in a trunk was clearly, like, if anybody actually believes that garbage, I got some land to sell you, because it's just so ridiculous, especially for 4 hours. Shit, if you're a producer in a trunk for 4 hours, you might die of suffocation. Like, that's not even something healthy. That producer would have sued Sally if she did that.
I guess the question is this. Do you think the producers are getting more reckless, or is the audience becoming more irate at the way we judge the contestants? Like, are these villains any worse?
It doesn't seem like it. They're worse maybe in the eyes of the naive viewership. The people that really don't follow, and they think that reality TV, while not real, is just a little bit fabricated. I think they just don't understand how fake it is and what producers will do. And I think this season, you've covered it, I've covered it, Game of Roses has covered it. We're starting to see this influx of contestants that are really taking to social media, calling out production without calling out production. Like, they're literally not saying, producers made me do this. But when Teddy posts an Instagram feed that says, things I learned about myself this summer, and you know what she posted. It was about, like, getting out of toxic situations where I was being treated wrong and people around me were treated wrong. She's literally saying producers were assholes and that's why I got the fuck off the beach. But she can't come out and say that, so she puts it in this flowery Instagram post where it's almost like a reflection of things that happened to me this summer, when anybody that follows this show with any sort of seriousness is very well aware of what Teddy was saying in her Instagram post, you know?
Yeah, and I always relate the producers back to like a cult mentality. Like they'll try to dangle things over your head, like accept the edit or you won't get on Paradise. And if you don't do this, you don't do that, we're not going to feed you, or we're going to make you sleep deprived. And it's just like, they're all pretty much just cheap tricks to create the worst version of people. And,
Yeah.
I think as long as everyone knows what they're signing up for, the audience, just like give them a little bit of grace. Like every single person in the audience would act in a similar way. They'd be grouchy, they'd say something, they'd be jealous,
Yeah, I think the audience, that's the real slippery slope, because if you take the Sally suitcase incident, there is no storyline if those women don't go into that room and open up a suitcase that had a planted waffle iron and vibrator in it. So while it is partially the women's contestants' fault who did that and opened up that suitcase, there is another side of, well, maybe they opened up that suitcase because producers literally closed the door in that room and said, you are not leaving until you do this for us. So who do you blame there? Do you blame the contestant for finally giving in and say, fine, fuck, I'll do it? Or do you blame production, who literally says, if you don't do this, essentially, when production says, if you don't do something for us, they're essentially saying you're either going home or we're going to embarrass you with an edit. You're almost forced to do that. Now, the only way to avoid all of this is to just never sign up for the show. That's the only way you can guarantee that you will never be manipulated or told to say something you don't want to say, or told to do something you don't want to do. The only way is to never go on the show. And we know that's not going to happen. So we got to deal with you just got to be real about it. And I love the fact that me and you and She's All Batch and Game of Roses can bring up these things, whereas clickbait and Talking It Out and Bachelor Happy Hour has to skirt around all these issues, and they can never say, like the story that I told about Sally today, which is 100% true of what really went down on her excursion to get to Mexico. That should be the main topic on Bachelor Happy Hour, Talking It Out, and clickbait, but they'll never address it because they know that's probably what producers did, and they can't talk about it because they're getting a direct deposit in their checking account every month from ABC/NZK.
Yeah, and as I always like to say, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining, and that's kind of what the show likes to do. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us. People can go check out Reality Steve with his daily podcast, the blog, and all of his Instagram comments, spoilers, all of Twitter and all that, realitysteve.com. Thank you so much for being a part of our wedding week here. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you got it, man, and congratulations. I hope everything works out on your very special day. That's really cool. And like I said, I hope everything works out. The weather cooperates for you guys, and you have a great wedding day.
Thanks so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back with more content after this.